Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here and it's time for my May wrap up. May was a really good reading month. I ended up reading 20 things which I'm really pleased about. Breaking that down into the star ratings, I ended up giving 2 books 5 stars. Yay for finally getting some 5-star books. And the majority of the books this month were 4-star reads for me, with 14 4-star reads. I had 3 3-star reads, 1 2-star read, and unfortunately 1 DNF. So, yeah, I DNF'd a book, but I do that sometimes. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't a terrible book, it just didn't work for me. So breaking this down by genre, I had 2 graphic novels, 8 YA books, 1 short story collection, 2 middle grade books, 4 manga, and 3 adult general fiction books. So by far, again, I read more YA this month. I definitely feel that's where I'm sort of looking at the moment to pull books from. There's just so many great YA books coming out at the moment. However, really nicely, one of my 5-star books this month was a general adult fiction and the other book was a YA, so it was a really nice split in that regard. Anyway, let's talk about the books. I'll start with the DNF. And unfortunately I DNF'd Max. I've talked about this book and how it just wasn't for me, but unfortunately it just didn't work for me. The protagonist in this story starts off talking, it's basically our protagonist talking to us. That's the voice that this story is written in, and unfortunately our protagonist starts talking to us in the womb and has a voice as if it has complex thoughts from birth, and I just really struggled to get on board with that, so unfortunately I DNF'd. My 2-star read was Sufficient Grace. My 3-star reads, My Name is Leon, Maximum Ride Volume 2, and Swimmer Among the Stars. My 4-star reads, Low Volume 3, Boys Don't Knit, The Upside of Unrequited, Maximum Ride Volume 1, Allegedly, Gem Volume 3, The Truth About Jellyfish, Proof of Forever, He Said, She Said, which I listened to on audio via the Audible app, I Have No Secrets, English Boy in New York, Fairy Tale Volume 4 and Fairy Tale Volume 5, and The Scent of Rain. And my 2 5-star books, Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined and Bone Meal for Roses. So I want to talk to you about well actually I'm not going to talk to you about the 2 5-star reads like I normally would. I'm going to talk to you about one of them because Bone Meal for Roses I've already done a full review of, and I will link that down below, so if you're interested in that you can go and check it out there. But I'm going to talk to you about the other 5-star read, and I'm also going to talk to you about one of my 4-star reads because it was so close to being a 5-star that I really want to talk about it and let you know, because I haven't sort of caught up with doing my weekly wrap-ups because we've been on holiday. So The Scent of Rain by Anne Montgomery was a book that I was very kindly sent by the author herself, and this was via the NetGalley app, and I was really interested in this. It's about a young girl called Rose who lives in a fundamentalist Mormon community. I don't know anything about fundamentalist Mormons, and I don't really know anything about the Mormon community at all. So I was really interested to read this, and it was gripping. I read this in a day. I read this in sort of a few sittings and I just couldn't put it down. We're following Rose. She's a young girl. She's at sort of marrying age in her community, and I say that very lightly because they are children, and we're learning about her life and the way that her family lives and how perhaps she doesn't really understand exactly what's going on and agree with necessarily everything that's going on. She lives in a very abusive household, and I was gripped in that aspect because I find these sort of cult and extreme religious communities very interesting. We then also have some other characters that we are following and seeing the points of view of, which add to the sort of overall story, and I suppose give us that outsider's perspective. So we've got Aidan Reyes, and he is at the beginning of the story, he's running away from home. We don't really know why, we don't know his backstory, but we know he's a young man, he's desperate, and he's running away. Unfortunately, he's not really equipped to survive in the desert, and he's found on the side of the road with severe heat dehydration, you know, in a really bad condition, by a man called Track. He's a local handyman who lives in the area, and we're also following a little bit about his story. And what we're learning is we're learning about this sort of outside of this community. We're learning about the people that live on the periphery, the people that perhaps have lived in the Mormon community but not in such a fundamentalist part of it. So they don't believe in polygamy, which was made illegal, and so there is sort of two factions, and it was just really interesting. It was very gripping, it was very sad. There is a lot of different triggers in here for sort of physical abuse and paedophilia and brainwashing, I suppose. So I really enjoyed this, and I was really torn. I very almost gave it 5 stars, but there was just, I don't know, there was just a tiny little thing. If I was going to say, I'd say it was sort of, you know, 4.75, but I really wanted to mention it here because it's not one that I would have heard of had I not very kindly been approached by the publisher. So I thought I would mention it to you all here in case it was something you're interested in, because I know a lot of you have mentioned when I've discussed other books before that this sort of cultish community is something that you're quite intrigued by and books that you enjoy reading. So yeah, that's The Scent of Rain by Anne Montgomery. And then the other book I want to talk to you about is my 5-star read of the month, and that is Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined by Danielle Young Ullman. I again was very kindly sent this by the publisher for an honest review, so you will be getting my honest review here. And as you know, I gave it 5 stars. And this one really affected me. It brought tears to my eyes. And I feel like at the moment, if a book is meant to be sort of moving, if it doesn't bring me to tears, I can't give it 5 stars. I don't know, this one was one of those ones where I finished the book and I hadn't cried, and then I just sort of sat and cried for a few minutes. It sort of hit me a little bit at the end. You're following a young girl. She's gone to a sort of this hardcore wilderness like camp. I think it's for about 3 weeks. They literally are, you know, making their own tents and hiking every day, and it's for at-risk youths. So you have an eclectic mix of characters there, and throughout the story you are following chapters, and they're either chapters that are at the wilderness, so it might say Peak Wilderness day 7 to 10, and that chapter will talk about what's happening now. We're also following what happened with her growing up, so we've got like Glinda's Agony, age 15. So we'll be reading sections about what brought her to this wilderness camp as well. And then we're also reading sporadically through here these letters that she is writing in a journal to her mother, who she's obviously got quite a tumultuous relationship with. And throughout this book, we don't only follow our main character, but we also find out all about these other characters she meets at this youth wilderness. I mean, ultimately it is her story, but we do feel a sense of connection with these other characters as well and their plights. And it was just, I thought it was really well handled, really well done, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the story and the way it affected me, and it's very much in some ways a look at parenthood and a look at mother-daughter relationships and a look at allowing people to follow their dreams and not to stifle them and not to force people to do things because of things that have happened in your past. I thought was quite interesting. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I definitely recommend it. So that is Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined by Danielle Young Ullman. So anyway, that's my May wrap up. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've had a really great reading month, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Yeah, so that's it from me. Bye for now, BookTube.